Norman Mailer is one of the great American writers of our time. His first book, coming out of World War II, is written on a variety of subjects, from his early anti-war novel to his most recent biography of Picasso. He returns to politics in this month's George magazine. He considers the presidency as we enter the next millennium, and I am pleased to have Norman Mailer back here at this table. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Nice to have you here. What made you do this, other than...
Well, you know, I've written an awful lot about conventions over the years. I started in 1960. I wrote about it in 1964 again. I wrote a book in 1968 because that was an extraordinary couple of conventions, Miami and the Siege of Chicago.
Right.
And then I also did something in 72 about Carter. So I've been writing about politics all these years. I did something in 92 on the Houston Convention. And so it was natural. John Kennedy approached me one day, called me, and asked if I'd like to do it. And I had a thought, which was I started with the father in 1960, and I might as well conclude with the son. So I said, sure, yeah, I'd be interested in doing it.
And how was it? You said you considered calling yourself the neophyte since you hadn't been covering it every day, or B, you considered calling yourself the dean because you had been there before.
No, naturally I chose the dean.
Of course you did.
No, well, I was a neophyte. I certainly wasn't a neophyte about covering conventions. No. There I felt a certain confidence. But I'd never been on an election campaign before, and that was fascinating. That was marvelous. I mean, I had a very good time covering the election campaigns, and generated even a certain amount of admiration for Dole, because it's tiring. It's damn tiring.
Yeah, especially at the end, you said that he regained his sense of what?
Well, I think. You see, Dole was in a terrible situation through most of that election campaign. Nothing moved, no matter what he tried. Nothing succeeded. He stayed 15 to 20 points behind Clinton week after week after week. They tried everything. He tried being nice. He tried being ugly. He tried this. He tried that. Scandals were breaking all over the place for Clinton. Nothing happened. And I think Dole was getting desperate, because if he lost by 15 or 20 points and the Congress had gone Democrat, he would have been reviled. Those Republicans are not nice people. And if you do them a harm, you're on their bad list forever. And Dole knew that. Boy, did he know that. And so I think he committed himself to an all-out campaign that finally seized some of the imagination of the electorate.
That was in the last 96 hours, was it?
96 hours, 4 days in a row. He handed out, I wasn't there, mind you, for this, but I naturally followed it and talked to people about it. Handed out deodorant to the reporters, which is his humor. And they, because they weren't going to have a chance to sleep or change clothes a couple of days in a row. And he did it for 96 hours, and that caught enough imagination and stirred up the Republican troops enough. So he lost by, 8 points, and the Republicans won the Congress. Now, Clinton, of course, contributed with the fact that his campaign situation, his campaign funds were so awful. I mean, so polluted, so dirty, you know, even dirtier than the Republicans' campaign funds. So he was in bad shape at the end, and then he lost half of his lead. That was enough for a Republican majority, and that left everyone on the Republican side happy with Dole.
Could Dole ever have won this thing?
Oh, I doubt it. I think he would have had to go to the mat, and he would have to get into all the ugly secrets, not only the ones that were out there, but the ones that weren't out there, the ones that implicated Republicans as well. I mean, there's a way he could have gotten a death grip on Clinton, but it also would have been a death grip on George Bush. He would have had to go back to Mena, Arkansas, and that old scandal, which is a huge scandal.
What scandal?
Mena, Arkansas.
Mena, Arkansas.
M-E-N-A, yeah.
What is that?
Well, what happened is that at a certain point, the CIA was looking for a third world country during the war in Nicaragua, the Civil War, because they wanted to help out
the drug business, yeah. Right.
But, you know, they looked around for a third world country, and they couldn't find one because they didn't trust any of the third world countries in Central America. How do they know when one of them was going to go communist, the one they'd chosen? So they looked around. The only safe third world country was Mississippi or Arkansas or a couple other states, and they decided on Arkansas, which is a
They being the CIA?
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people don't agree with you.
A lot of people have not agreed with me all my life.
But you believe it, that the CIA chose Arkansas to use.
I'm speaking as a novelist. In other words, if I were writing the dialogue for it, you'd have a couple of CIA guys talking, and they'd say, now, where can we go? Where can we find a third world country? And one of them said, Arkansas. Now, I happen to love Arkansas. You know, I come from Brooklyn, and I feel an identity with Arkansas.
Why
Arkansas feels about Texas the same way Brooklynites feel about Manhattan.
Yeah.
And I don't laugh at Arkansas, but there is a nice, marvelous mountainous area in the western part of Arkansas that is highly secret. And they chose this young boy governor then, in '84, Bill Clinton, to to wink an eye at it. And I don't want to get into it now because I want to talk about my piece, not about Arkansas. But there was a huge scandal there, which would have involved George Bush and the CIA.
Because he was at that time
vice president. And probably would have tarnished some of the glitter of that icon, Ronald Reagan. It was a bad business. If Dole would have had to get into that, and then he probably wouldn't have won.
My point was, and your point is, that the only opportunity he had was to go negative and go for Clinton's throat early and fast.
Instead of late, which he ended up going for Clinton's throat, but it was awfully late.
And he never stayed the course on that sort of aggressive attack against him. He'd do it for, as you say, for a week or two, and then he'd back off.
Well, he kept going nice, not nice, nice, not nice. And finally I realized that he was like a cranky leading man.
Yeah.
He's charming to a few fans and then says, they got the makeup wrong again.
All right, well, let's talk about that idea. You see Clinton as a star. You see Dole as a leading man in Hollywood parlance.
Yes.
What's the difference?
Well, the star is sort of larger than life to begin with. In other words, a leading man will excite people if he or she is present at a gathering. A star changes the nature of the gathering altogether. A star is not interested in what went right or what went wrong because there's so much information coming in all the time in their lives that people like Elvis Presley were stars. Madonna's a star. Warren Beatty, Jack Nicholson were stars.
Michael Jordan is a star.
Michael Jordan is very much a star. So much is happening all at once. So many good things, so many bad things, that they don't have that intimate sense that the leading man has of we got to get rid of that director. That director doesn't understand how good I am.
There's no self-doubt.
Yeah, leading men are filled with self-doubt.
And stars are not.
Yeah.
And Clinton had it.
Excuse me, stars feel like they're elements of destiny. They have this sense that they're destined to be important. They have an immense inner confidence together with, they can have appalling falls and terrible moments in their lives. I'm not saying that they're superhuman, but they don't have that sort of intimate, nagging, irritating sense of things aren't right. You see that if you change this, that'll be better. They're larger than life rather than slightly smaller than who they're supposed to be.
Does Clinton have the stuff of greatness?
Well, I finally voted for hhim because I thought he's got...
Because Ralph Nader wasn't on the ballot.
Well, that's absolutely true. No, I was going to vote for... It's in the piece. I was going to vote for Nader, and then Nader wasn't on the ballot in Massachusetts. Right. So I thought, well, I'd rather vote than not vote. Just because that gives you an edge when you're thinking about the candidate ever after. So I voted for Clinton. But I voted for him not because I really like or approve of much about him. I think he's been singularly without high principle.
Okay, but let me stop you there. You neither liked him or proved much about him.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you like him, first of all? What's not likable about him?
Well, he's very charming.
Okay, but why don't you like him?
He's in a room and I'm talking to him, which happens every now and again. Yes, I like him. You have to like him. He's warm. He's nice. What I don't like about him is he does not have high principle. What I don't like about him is I've been a Democrat for many, many years, and he sold out my party. My party is now the party of Nelson Rockefeller. It's a moderate Republican party. And he could have made a fight in the other direction, I believe. He gave up too easily. He is not a leader in the sense of changing, leading a new policy, having a vision. He does not have a vision that will move out of the center.
He's already announced that his second term will be marked by what he calls a vital, dynamic center.
Yes.
And you don't think leadership can be found in the center. You've got to have some vision of where you want to take the country, and it's not to the center if you're going to change things.
Yes, I know it can't be found in the center, and for a very simple reason. The center is the U.S. corporation. And the U.S. corporation is, in my modest opinion, wrecking America.
How so?
They're wrecking America aesthetically. They've put up the ugliest buildings in the history of Christendom. The ugliest buildings in the last 2,000 years, been put up in America since the 1950s. And now it's all over the world. I mean, even when you come to Paris, of course, has enough sense to keep those ugly buildings on the outskirts of Paris. But, I mean, there are many American cities that are hideously ugly, half-finished. They have these barbaric parallelepipeds that are standing up in the air. They all look like Kleenex boxes on end.
What's your favorite building in New York City?
The Empire State Building. Now, that's how you build a skyscraper. It's interesting. You can keep looking at it. You have a lot to think about when you look at it.
So when Mies van der Rohe's building on Park Avenue doesn't do a whole lot for you because it's
the
too
best.
Sterile, it's too...
it's the best of a hideously ugly lot.
Modernism.
They're ugly.
Modernism didn't do it for you.
No, and on top of that, the Pygmies came along, and what they did is they appropriated modernism because it was cheaper. You could put up a building without decoration.
How else, in terms of buildings, the legacy of buildings, you think American corporations are destroying the country?
Well, through advertising, through an immense amount of advertising. They're wrecking the ability of the young to read because what you have, you know, television belongs to the people. It doesn't belong to the people who buy the time. If we paid some small percentage more on our income tax, God forbid, we wouldn't have to have commercials all the time. We could choose those channels that don't have commercials at all. Do you realize what happens to kids? They are used by now to being interrupted. Whenever they get interested in something, they're used to being interrupted every 7 to 12 minutes on 9 out of 10 television shows. Well, that wrecks concentration. That wrecks reading. People are always talking, why is the reading so, why do kids not read anymore? Well, it's not only that television entertains them, it's also that television interrupts them. And nobody who's used to being interrupted can read well.
And they're not only surfing on television, now they're surfing on the computer, on the internet as well.
And then to look
moving quickly from one thing to the other, looking for something, and then continuing on the move.
Yeah, surfing. But this, I just don't want to be cranky about this. The corporation is, I mean, we could talk for 5 hours on what the corporation has done. Right. But let me go back to the point. I'm saying the vital center cannot solve anything in America because that's the corporation, and the corporation is the root of our evils at this point. You know, we have the discrepancy between the wealthy and the poor in America is now the greatest of the 15 major nations in the world. You know, that's something to be ashamed of.
You point out, well, I think, that the two biggest problems facing America and facing Clinton are race and income disparity, the separation between the haves and the have-nots. But you believe, in voting for Clinton, that he has a better shot at doing something about those, because on race, he has a resonance with the black community.
Black people feel that he understands them, and I think they're right to a degree. He understands them. He sympathizes with them to a degree he's able to sympathize with them, because finally his heart may belong a lot to black people, but his legs have to be marching in the other direction most of the time. You know, it's unforgivable that he signed that welfare bill when in fact, why don't they get rid of corporate welfare? Much more money is spent aiding corporations than is spent giving money to the poor. And the middle class is paying for the money that goes to the corporations. If the middle class is mad about the money that's going to the poor, they ought to get a lot madder about the money that's going to the wealthy.
Corporate welfare.
Yes.
Do you ever talk to him about these things when you see him, and talk to him about leadership and about greatness and about what you think greatness is all about?
You know, Leon Trotsky once said, certain questions answer themselves by being asked. So I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
With my ideas, how often do you think he would invite me in to talk to him?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I would like to believe, here shows you how naive I am. Well, I would like to believe that he would welcome that, because you hear, as president, a lot of the same message. And we know you come from it from askew, and it might be interesting and worthwhile to listen to Wirt Norman, because you've experienced, you've been around a few decades, and to listen to what you say. And what's he got to be scared of? Or what's anybody got to be scared of? It all is a question of listening, and probably maybe there is something that you say that gives rise to an idea that could make a difference for him. That's naive, isn't it?
The prosecution rests.
It just would never happen. Just go back to television and shut up. All right, but so you don't come away from this exposure to Clinton feeling enthusiastic about him. You just thought that he was more equipped to deal with the issues than Bob Dole was, in terms of your personal vote, because you speak about choices you face going into the...
I wish, you know, I think of him as being equal to the Dauphin.
Oh.
And what he needs is Joan of Arc. Now, obviously, someone like myself isn't going to fit that bill.
Who was Louis XIV then?
But you see, I'm stammering. I believe he's going to help black and white relations in America.
And that's what you believe is the biggest problem in America.
Second biggest. The biggest is the rich and the poor.
Okay.
And that was worth voting for, because Dole stood for nothing except he was kind of a nice guy as a leading man. He had his good side, he had his bad side, and you kept seeing the good side and the bad side every 10 minutes. You know. But Clinton, you could tell watching Clinton that he wants to be known as a great president. And he can't.
Why not?
Well, because greatness is just not, you know, you can break your heart trying to be great and failing.
Yeah, but why not? I mean, it seems to me that if you're president, you ought to want to be great. If you're a novelist, you ought to want to write as well as you write. If you're
going to be great, you've got to get attacked. And he's been attacked so much on his personal life for the first 4 years that I think he may be a little weary of being attacked. It's not enough to wish to be great. I mean, any athlete knows that you can wish to be a great athlete, but the punishment you have to take is incredible.
You've got to have not only the physical will, but the mental will to do it.
Yeah, you really have to be able to live in pain for long periods. And I'm not sure that he's got that.
If Colin Powell, last question, had been the candidate of the Republican Party, he would have won.
Family values people would have killed him.
Would have killed him.
I'm speaking metaphorically.
No, I see. All right, George is the magazine, Norman Mailer is the author on The Real Reason Why Clinton Won. It's actually, they got two covers here. Which one do you like best, Norman?
Well, aesthetically, I like that one.
The one on...
in terms of the libido quotient.
Libido is this one, isn't it?
I say the white one comes in by a nose.
Libido's still there, roaring, isn't it? My thanks to Norman Mailer. Tomorrow night, Dwight Yoakam and the star of Shine, Jeffrey Rush.